Well, thank you so much for getting the Scarlet Shirt Pattern. So let's get started before the head. I do want to have some clarifications before you get started with the pattern, just a little tips and something like that. I will be using French seam for most of the shirt process and some parts bias tape. You don't need to do this. If you have a serger or a zig-zag stitch machine, like any normal machine, you can go ahead and do that. It's harder and you have more time when you're doing the shirt, so you will spend more time doing that than if you go ahead and overlock or use the zigzag stitch. I will be adding some parts where I use a zigzag stitch, just so you know how to use it and where to use it. In the short sleeve version, you will have the full process with a zigzag stitch, so you can see the finish, how it looks like. Honestly, don't see the difference outside, so it's mainly from the inside. If it's the first time you're doing this shirt, you can go ahead and overlock. I do like finishing some parts with bias tape, so I do prefer that. So if you like that, you can go ahead and do that. I'm gonna be showing you all the parts and all the things that I do, like I finish the original Scarlet, but you don't have to. You can go ahead, like I said, and use zigzag and overlock. And in the short sleeve version, I will be also using ribbons instead of the traditional that it comes with the pattern. So you will be having like a modification over there. And you can also go ahead and do like the first version or another version. After saying that, happy sewing. So we're gonna get started with the paper pattern. You just go ahead and follow the guide. I would recommend you 100% that. I'm using a ruler just to mark the parts where I should cut. The guide will recommend you what parts you should paste first. The most important part is that this mark must be aligned. I also recommend you to set up the list. This will help you so much with each part of the pattern. So if you got one part of the pattern, you can go ahead and cross it over the list. You will also need 2 buckles and also some interfacing that is not so hard for the neckline. So the front pattern is not cut on fold, so you will need just one from each side. So for the parts that are on fold, you have to fold your fabric in two and put the pattern close to the edge. So in the interfacing, the part that is shiny is gonna paste to the fabric. So before cutting your pattern, have that in mind. So we're gonna start with the front strap. So we're gonna fold one of the edges and then fold at the middle 2 edges, and we're gonna press with the iron. And we're gonna go ahead and fold again at the middle of what we did recently and ironing again. These are gonna be the front straps that close the shirt. So we're gonna sew from one side and then go ahead and sew all around the edge that we have open. So we will have one raw edge and then a closed edge from the other side. So we're gonna go ahead and do the color and the interfacing for it. So we're gonna place the shiny part from the inside of the fabric and then iron everything a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and do the same with the front facing. We're gonna place the shiny part from the inside of the fabric. I usually mark my fabric from the front with a chop and also do all my notches right now. You can also go ahead and do chop or just use a mini scissor like I did. Okay, so for the front is a little bit different. I'm gonna mark where the ribbons should start from one side and then from the other side. You can do all the marks you need. Instead of doing where they should start, you can go ahead and do everything or mark whatever you need. So go ahead and check that they align correctly, mainly before I get anything started. I'm going to start with the right front. I'm going to put the raw edge at the edge of the shirt where I put my first mark of the ribbon. Now I'm going to place my front facing. I'm going to put the interfacing to the top. So I'm going to place the fronts together. So we're doing this just to flip over the fabric. And we're going to secure everything with a single stitch from the front. We're also going to do the same from the other side. Once we attach the straps from both sides, we're going to check that they fit correctly and close perfectly. So once we did that, we can go ahead and start assembling all the top. As I said previously, I'm going to do French seam, but I'm also going to show you guys if you want to do overlock or zigzag stitch. We're going to start with the front side. So if you want to do French seam, we have to put the wrong sides of the fabric together. And if you want to do overlock, it's going to be the right sides of the fabric together. So we're going to sew the right fabric together, and this is how it's going to look like. Now we're going to cut the excess fabric really close to the stitch we did before. We're going to flip it to the other side. Right now we're on the front side of the fabric. So we're going to be pressing with the iron from the other side, and we're going to be working on the wrong side of the fabric. The front side is really tricky, so you have to be really patient with this part. We're going to go ahead and sew what we just pressed. If you're going for a zigzag stitch or an overlock, I would recommend you to skip this part. We're going to go ahead and press again what we just did, and now we're working in the right side of the fabric, and we're going to single stitch this just to secure what we just did. If you're going for a zigzag stitch, you just have to mark zigzag on your sewing machine and go ahead and close to the edge and sew. We're going to do this with all the parts of our shirt and push to one side the seam that we just did. And iron patterning. Once we did that, from the right side of the fabric, we're gonna go ahead and do a secure stitch. I'm gonna do this with all the parts of the front and the back. We're putting the wrong side of the shoulders together. If you will do this with overlock, remember to put the right sides together. Before you keep going, I would recommend you to try it on and see if everything you like and it fits perfectly. You can also adjust the length if you want this top shorter. Of course, you can do anything if you want it like longer, but you can also adjust anything you want. We can go ahead and start with the color. Right now we have the front that is interfacing and also the other side that doesn't have anything. I'm gonna mark the middle because I do like some guidance. And I'm also gonna put the fronts together. And I'm gonna sew over there once I marked everything. I'm also gonna leave 1 centimeter or more. You have it marked on the pattern just so I can then put it over the body. You will see it better once we get over there. Once we sew everything, we're gonna do little cuts just so when we flip over the collar is better. Do it like really near to the line, but don't like cut it. Once we flip it over, we can go ahead and iron it just to secure everything, and we're gonna attach it to the bodice. Attach to the bodies the interfacing part. I always recommend to start from the middle, so mark the middle and then you're gonna go from one side and then from the other side. Just to have in mind, you do have to put the fronts together and you're gonna do it from the outside. Once you secure everything with pins, you just go ahead and sew everything we did before. you finish that, you're gonna press the seam to the inside of the collar so you won't be able to see it. So once we did that, we're gonna push 1 centimeter or less inside of what we did before. We're also gonna push inside what we did left before unsewn, the 1 centimeter from the side. And we're gonna use as guideline what we sewed before, like under. So we're gonna push everything inside until when we reach the previous sew. And we're gonna make a secure stitch from the inside of the shirt. I'm also gonna mark where the buckle should be and the front and the back of the sleeve. I like to do this so I know which one is the front of the sleeve. It's really important that you mark all the notches and where the buckle should be, the straps should be, and also where the loops should go. Also, we have like a front and a back pleat, so it's really important that you know which one is the front of the sleeve and the back. I'm using my paper pattern as a guide just to know which side should the pleat go. So one goes for the front and the other ones go to the back, and this is how it should look like. We're gonna go ahead and do the adjustable strap. We're gonna fold it to the middle and then press it over. We're gonna start sewing by the edge and then go ahead and go across all the ribbon. And we're gonna leave one side open and the other side closed. What we have to do is just to push inside what we just sewn. You can also use a tool like a pencil or anything you have just to flip it over. We're sending towards the raw edges and we're gonna have this perfect strap. We're gonna press it over and we will have one side open and the other side closed. So we're gonna position it where the strap should be. And we're gonna put the raw side from that edge of the sleeve. Secure it and go ahead and do the same with the loops. So we're gonna mark where the loops should be and we're gonna start sewing them. We're gonna push the raw side of the loop towards the inside. So you're not gonna be able to see it. I will check if the straps goes well with the loop. And we're gonna sew towards the top and then the bottom really close to the edge. Once we secure everything, we can go ahead and do the buckle. You can go and do the same that we did for the previous straps, but I would recommend you to mark where the buckle should end. So we're gonna pass the fabric towards the middle. Have in mind that this won't have the raw edge, it's from the other side. And then position where the buckle should be. We're gonna secure one side of the edge and then where the buckle goes around. I check if everything goes perfectly, and then we can go ahead and close I'm gonna close the sleeve with a bias tape, so I'm gonna put the two fronts together and sew like I normally would do. Now we're going to position the bias tapes close to the edge, one side of the seam that we just did, and sew over the line that you will be able to see from the bias tape. Again, you can just zigzag and that will be it. Now we're gonna flip to the other side to cover the raw edge with the bias tape. I'm using the iron because it's better, and I'm also cutting some extra fabric that you will be able to see from the other side. Once we have done that, we're gonna press that seam towards the buckle side. So you're not gonna be able to see any raw edges, and we're gonna press it with some iron. We're gonna secure it with a stitch really close to the edge. This is a really tricky part because you have to push the fabric and like really check that you're not getting anything from the other side just because the sleeve is really long. This is how the sleeve is gonna look from the inside, and this is gonna look from the outside. Now is a good time to check if the sleeve is really long for you, and you can go ahead and cut before we do the hem. I'm gonna do the hem with some bias tape. Again, you can just overlock this part and do 1 centimeter inside. I'm gonna do the same I did for the sleeve. You can actually double fold the bias tape, but I'm gonna do just one because I really like the red color different. I'm gonna do the same for both sleeves, and we're gonna attach it to the bodice. It's really important to know which one is the front. Again, I did have like bad experience with this, and we're gonna attach the sleeve. You can also go ahead and do just a zigzag stitch or a serger. I'm gonna also close the sleeve with the bias tape. I'm gonna position the both sides together, and then I'm gonna put the sleeve inside of the bodice, so it's better just to secure everything. I need to fold the notches that you have just to secure everything, the sleeve and the bodice together. We're gonna do the same that we did for the sleeve. We're gonna position the bias tape on one side of the raw edge, and we're gonna sew accordingly to the bias tape and the position that we have. Cut a little bit of the extra fabric, and then I'm gonna push the bias tape towards the seam open, so when we press it, we're gonna be able to see it. Once we have done that, we're gonna press over the body side, the seam. This is for the bias tape, it doesn't move around, so we're gonna press it and sew over the body side. So you're gonna be able to see any sewing over the sleeve, just over the body. And this is how it looks like from the front and also from the inside. We're gonna do now the hem, and we can adjust everything we like right now. We're gonna touch again close to the edge from the front of the bodies, the bias tape. And we're gonna sew over the mark line that we have in our bias. Again, we're doing something pretty similar that we did with the sleeves. And we're gonna press it over and towards the inside of the bodies. And we're gonna use the iron to press everything. The edges, I usually put 1 centimeter inside of the bias tape. So now we're gonna flip it over again towards the inside of the bodies. So this way you won't be able to see the bias tape from the outside. What we're gonna do is just to sew one time. So we're gonna double pressing it with the iron, just like this. We're gonna secure it really close to the bias and the end of it. And these are the final results from the inside and also from the outside. I think it's looking so good. And this is your Scarlet shirt. I actually do have like the collar lower here because I double it, but you can use it as you want it. I think it's looking so nice. You can also adjust your sleeves to how you want it, and see you soon.